And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We will share some clips from the news, have a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are joining us for the live portion. And if you're listening somewhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time most of the time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. See, there it is. As well as Rumble, and that's Coffee Talk 2 with the number 2 on Rumble. Although I cannot, since switching back to StreamYard, I cannot stream the live portion of Rumble anymore. As we go ahead and get ready to jump off here, and I'll say hello to some of the people that are in the live portion. See, Puck is joining us, as well as Leo. And we have, who else? We have Jimmy, Helter, Brian, Dragon, Jeff, Kimberly, Sven, and JJ saying hello today, and hello to everyone else who is perhaps listening and cannot chime in or chooses not to. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you had a good weekend as we get ready to jump off. And of course, you saw the main headlines, which is overshadowing some other headlines. But Pope Francis evidently passed away this morning. From our perspective in the U.S., it was this morning. At least he didn't pass away on Easter, and then they could try to claim some crazy religious aspect of it. But yeah, if you're into the Catholicism, I'm probably going to insult you a little bit here today. But I challenge you then to actually study the Bible instead of just reading it or listening to it in church. And you will very slowly begin to determine that what you've been listening to in church all your life is church doctrine and not anything necessarily that's biblical. And that goes for Christians too. As we get ready to jump off, here's something that it's been burying in the news, because this also happened. And I'll go ahead and show this first before we jump into the discussion about Pope Francis's passing. Pope Francis's passing. And hopefully I can be seen and heard. So here we go. Associated Press. World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab retires as chairman. Oh, look at that. Mr. Turkey Neck is giving up his position. 88 years old. Same age as Pope Francis, by the way. 88 years old. He's been the chairman of this organization that he founded for 55 years. And I guess he determined that he's squeezed all the evil out of himself that he possibly can distribute around the world. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, thank God Klaus Schwab is gone. Well, I'm sure that sinister. Uh-oh. Am I still there? Because everything choked up here real quick. Hold on a second. Am I back? That's what I get for talking about Klaus Schwab. See what they do to you? We can try to open that again. I'm sure they have someone just as sinister lined up to take his position that will try to destroy you all with some newfound vigor that the old boy just wasn't up to anymore. So again, Associated Press, World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab takes a powder. So Klaus Schwab, founder of the World Economic Forum, best known for hosting an annual meeting of political business and other elites in the Swiss alpine town of Davos, is retiring as chairman more than half a century after creating the Geneva-based think tank. The forum said Monday, which is today. The forum quoted Schwab, 80, stepping down with immediate effect. I guess he lost his marbles and they need to get rid of him right away, so they talked him into retiring, kind of like Joe Biden. Former Nestle chairman and CEO Peter Barabek Letmoth, is that correct? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, was unanimously selected as interim chairman by the forum's board at a special meeting on Sunday. There was much blood and ritual sacrifice. A search committee has been set up to choose a permanent master. I improvised a little bit there. The forum's annual gathering in Davos has for decades had human sacrifice. Served as a global hub where decision makers, academic leaders of international organizations, and elite business executives rub shoulders to discuss government policy, global crisis, and deal making. The gathering, typically in January, has hosted a long list of world leaders under Schwab's 55-year tenure, all of which pledged allegiance to Satan, including President Xi Jinping of China, Vladimir Putin of Russia, Donald Trump of the United States, and many more heads of states and government. They just named some modern people, obviously. The ones that are still alive. The ones that are still alive. Puck says the WEF. This thing's causing me a lot of connectivity problems. I got to close it. I think they're trying to shut me down. Puck says WEF is evil. Rodney says not that the WEF and associated groups are anti-Western. They want to eliminate our borders, yet non-Western nations get to keep theirs. Yeah. And Frankie is here, as well as Caps. He says, Pope died like anyone cares. I care more about the fact that Harris is still out there. Yeah, and poised to run for governor. We'll be talking about that. And John is here for cats. No cats in the room currently, though. Raccoon has joined us. Frankie says he's Catholic and he doesn't care. Rodney says, checking a private window once again, showing that YouTube is hiding my comments. Sorry about that, Rodney. I have no control over it. I had trouble keeping my my news feed open. I think I'm not allowed to say that word. I think I'm not allowed to say that name. But yeah, excuse me. He is stepping down. Goodness. He is stepping down effective immediately. And an interim has been put in his place until the mighty master from the depths below tells them who to officially replace Schwab with when the earth cracks open and he falls for eternity into the depths of hell. Monkey has joined us. Glad you could make it today as we get into the meat of the thumbnail for today, which of course is Pope Francis, who died this morning. Excuse me, died this morning, and will be waiting for Schwab when Schwab falls to the ends of the existence and joins Ebenezer Scrooge. That's I have that up on the our nostalgia channel. There's Ebenezer Scrooge that where he's in hell, and it is hilarious. It's like the best scene in the film, but when it was shown in theaters, but then when they put it on television, they removed the scene where he's in hell and Marley's giving him a tour. It's hilarious. He's like, I'm in hell? I rather thought I'd be going to heaven. Oh, did you really? It's hilarious. It's so funny. But anyways, Anyways, we'll go ahead and get into the article here. USA Today. But this is main news all over the place, and everybody's talking about it. And there's all these celebrities lining up to kiss his ass. Whoopi Goldberg and Martin Scorsese and everybody. Seriously. Oh, he was so wonderful. Okay. So USA Today says, the world mourns Pope Francis, a humble reformer who favored the poorest. Yeah. Fluke Man is here. Thanks for joining us today as we carry on. Humble. Oh man, I got some things to say about that. Ooh, you're not going to like me if you're into Catholicism. Pope Francis, 88, a humble reformer who sought to make the Catholic Church more inclusive, so less biblical, and clashed with world leaders over the rights of immigrants. Donald Trump, just say it. That's about the only world leader he's had any headbutting with over so-called immigrants. Died Easter Monday following a lengthy bout of double pneumonia, according to the Vatican. And everybody acts like they're so surprised by this. He was 88 years old. He was always in the hospital for pneumonia. The last time he was in there for 2 weeks, right? I think. He was decrepit. He looked like he was in really poor health. I'm surprised he hung on as long as he did. But I guess when you live like this extravagant, posh lifestyle and have the greatest doctors in the world at your disposal, you can hang on for dear life. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So it goes on to say, Cardinal Kevin Farrell, who oversees, not Will Ferrell, Kevin Farrell, who oversees the Pope's affairs, announced his death from Casa Santa Marta, where Francis lived at the Vatican. No cause of death was released. Complications related to pneumonia. I mean, serious. Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis, Farrell said in a statement on Vatican News. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. The Pope's death comes one day after a frail but determined Francis greeted thousands in St. Peter's Square after Easter Mass in his open-air Pope-mobile, and just weeks after an extended hospital stay during which he battled bilateral pneumonia and other health issues. The Pope who shunned, oh God, listen to this. The Pope who shunned pomp and privilege and loved to be among the public, sat in a raised chair in the vehicle as people cheered Viva il Papa. He stood at several places along the square, much to the delight of the crowd. This is another quote from Farrell. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love, especially in favor of the poorest and most marginalized. With immense gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite and merciful love of the one and true God. Oh, love to be among the people. Love to be among the people, indeed. Oh my. Again, this should come as no surprise. It should come as no surprise because of how weak and decrepit and sick he was. I doubt he did not live a life of pomp. It sure looked like he did to me. It looks like all of the hierarchy of the papacy, the entire entourage, lives a life of excessive pomp. JJ has a suggestion there. I'll put it up. A lot of what he is best known for, they talk about him championing the poorest of the poor, I can't tell. It seems to me that he championed climate change and all roads lead to heaven, while he collaborated with strange religions, shall we say, which is not biblical. As far as being humble, there's being humble, and then there's pretending to be humble for photo ops, like the foot washing at the prisons that he occasionally would do. I don't know if you were familiar with this. He'd go to the prison and they'd have some volunteer prisoners that, you know how conscription works. I need 3 volunteers, you, and you. The Pope's going to wash your feet. Don't touch him. In front of like a mass of media that you brought with you so that you can show how humble you are is hardly being humble. And I could go on and on. Brian says he watched a video about Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata passing on, where the guy who made it said you don't even know him, so you shouldn't feel sad and bothered by it. Rodney says those who the MSM calls immigrants, sane people categorize as invaders. Frankie says it's your connection that's lagging, not the pop-ups. Is anyone else having trouble seeing and hearing me? Sven doesn't think he's humble. Or he do. Do you think he's humble, Sven? Puck says the pro-LGB Pope is dead. Yes. Yes, indeed. That is what happened early this morning. They're calling it Easter Monday. Flukeman said, didn't Pope Francis, or was it the previous Pope, said people should have intercourse without condoms, even places with high STDs, when he could have said sex outside marriage is a sin? I don't remember. Rodney says it lagged a little earlier. Okay. Well, it happens. I try. The connection should be good. It's I don't use Wi-Fi. It's hardlined and it's fiber optic. Unless YouTube's algorithm is scrutinizing me that closely. As we talk to a CBS article on the same subject, if it wins, because I've already activated it and I'm sitting here staring at the screen and nothing's happening. Here we go. It's coming up now. It says, looking back at Pope Francis's impact on the Catholic Church, it's I believe personally a very negative impact. He was a populist leader, often referred to as the People's Pope. That sounds like pure PR. As Pontiff, Francis, who died Monday at age 88, sought to bring the church closer to the people, stating early in his papacy that he wanted to have a poorer church for the poor. Yeah, is that kind of like Bernie Sanders fighting the oligarchy by spending $250,000 on private jets in the last 3 months? Yeah. He was known for being driven around in unflashy cars and for making folksy gestures, like taking trips into Rome to buy an item at the store. Okay. So occasionally he would go to town with his entourage for a photo op and buy a piece of fruit from some street vendor. Gotcha. And unflashy cars, yeah, Pope Mobile's not exactly flashy. It's bulletproof, and we all know why. He was brilliant at playing to. Yeah, this is the truth. He was brilliant at playing to the press, creating the sorts of photo ops that would draw attention to his areas of interest. Okay, that's honest. He was good at sucking up to the press and playing the press with photo ops. It doesn't mean he meant anything that he did. He'd often speak extemporaneously while on papal voyages, particularly towards the beginning of his papacy, fielding questions on the flight. So, all right, he didn't need a teleprompter. That's probably true also. And for the press covering him, if you were sent there to cover him and you were in the press, you didn't have much choice. For those of us who got to travel with Pope Francis, we could see how he'd interact over the course of days with various dignitaries and his wider flock of the faithful. He'd appear particularly energized and engaged, lighting up with children or in an audience with those who were cast aside, living on the margins of society. So he would really, really perk up when he saw children. Okay. Big Red says Pope also invited a bunch of transmogrified people to eat lunch with him and was pro-illegal immigration. Yeah. Nature Nerd says, how does the Catholic Church select the next Pope? Oh, off the top of my head, I don't know if I can explain it. They have a process. They have a process which they'll start pretty much immediately. They'll start pretty much immediately. And, you know, funny enough that is mentioned. I'm going to tell you something about this, okay? I'm going to tell you something about that. Back in, before he was Pope Francis, he was very vocal about the Catholic Church and discrepancies with papal authority in regards to taking advantage of children. Okay? We all know the stories. It doesn't apply to every Catholic priest or every Catholic bishop or whatever, but there was a handful of them that were real evil. And they took advantage of kids. And the church has spent a lot of time, money, and energy covering that up and moving these guys around, right? And he was vocal about it until he became Pope. Then he didn't have shit to say. Did you hear him ever talking about that? He had look it up. He had plenty to say before he was Pope. Nothing to say when he became Pope. Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. While everybody, and they're going to butter this guy up. You're not going to see very much coming out of the media talking negatively about him, or Schwab, who we mentioned earlier. You're not going to see too much negative coming out of the media. You'll have to search for it. You'll have to search for it, but it's there. It's there. Cap says the Pope didn't do much of anything, and he never had to suffer, starve, or go a day without food or water, or a roof over his head. Or a roof over his head. I'm sure. God, like some of these comments here. For women, for example, he certainly was someone who brought women into the Vatican and gave them higher positions than had ever been the case. It's still a relatively small number, but that was certainly a dramatic change. He started, for conservatives, he started by giving them heartburn and ended up by giving partially a heart attack. It was quite a dramatic confrontation. In some ways, he was a polarizing pope. At the same time, hold still, that he really pushed the envelope and allowed things to be spoken about that had been considered closed, whether on sexual ethics or medical ethics, in a way because of his very informal style of disclosure. Yeah, I don't know about that. And Tuck has joined us. And Frankie says, if the Lord protects you, then why do popes need bulletproof cars? Because one of them was almost assassinated by a bullet while on parade. I forget which pope it was. It was in the 80s. And they shot him. They got him good. He lived. But then they started putting him in the Pope-mobile so that no one else would take a crack at him. But yeah, I mean, he would be a grand target for a lot of people. He'd be a grand target for a lot of people that would look to take him out. Look to take him out. But again, we're seeing a lot of people from yeah, JJ said Pope John Paul. That sounds right. It might have been Pope John Paul. John Paul II, right? But yeah, that was in the 80s, and the guy got him good, but he didn't finish him off. And they went through this whole thing where he said, "Oh, I forgive the shooter," and then they made the Pope Mobile so that he would be protected from any more bullets. But you'll be hearing a lot. I've seen something already from Whoopi Goldberg, from Martin Scorsese, from a couple of other celebrities. I can't remember their names. That are going on and on about how wonderful he was. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Sure. And that also, this slows down the canonization of the first millennial saint, by the way. This is from CBS News. Canonization of the first millennial saint postponed after the Pope's death. Which was that kid. And that just looks ridiculous. I'm sorry. The whole concept of sainthood altogether. But still, they did this whole millennial saint thing so that they could try to act like they're hip and young. Oh yeah, we're down with millennials. Says the canonization for an Italian teenager who was set to become the first millennial saint has been postponed for at least a week after the death of Francis. The Vatican announced the canonization of Carlo Acutis will be next Sunday in St. Peter's Square on the occasion of the Jubilee celebration of adolescence. It was originally scheduled to happen the 27th, second Sunday of Easter. Second Sunday of Easter? Easter's over. Easter's not even biblical. Acutis died of leukemia in 2006 at 15. Born in London to wealthy Italian parents, he grew up in Milan, where he managed a website for his parish and later a Vatican-based academy. He also used his computer skills to create an online database of Eucharistic miracles around the world. So basically, this kid was a rich blogger. There's no miracles. There's nothing. He was a rich blogger who died of leukemia at the age of 15. And they want to give him sainthood because they think it's good PR. Kimberly says Pope John Paul II, 1981. Okay. Armid suggests there are no saints among millennials. Oh. Flukeman said Easter is not biblical. The Bible doesn't tell you to celebrate Easter, does it? Easter also falls on the day of the celebration of Esther, who was a goddess of fertility. The Catholic Church merged them together to entice pagans into Catholicism, like pretty much every religious holiday they have. But yeah, look up Esther. Esther. Yeah, it goes all the way back to like Mesopotamia, I think. Yeah, Cap says distraction of the week makes you wonder what they're hiding right now. Always wonder what they're hiding. Always, because there's always something crazy going on. But they love blowing up stuff like this in the media. But yeah, that's not. There's not even miracles here. Where are the miracles? He was a blogger, but they want to give him sainthood so they can act like they're hip and young. Yeah, we're down with the millennials. Word to your mother. And he, again, wealthy blogger, lived in Italy. Yeah, and Kimberly says, yeah, fertility, rabbits, eggs make sense, exactly. But you can easily find all that. And JJ says, isn't there a requirement of some form of a miracle for achieving sainthood? I believe so. I believe so. Anyway, Fook Man, you'd be surprised what's not biblical. Going to church isn't biblical. There's nothing in the Bible. And people have said, where in the Bible does it say that? It's not there. That's why it's not biblical. The Bible does not say go to church. It says observe the Sabbath day. How do you observe the Sabbath day? By not going to work on that day. When is the Sabbath day? Friday dusk to Saturday dusk. So Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, according to the Bible, which Jesus, Yeshua, also practiced. Nowhere does it say on Sunday thou shalt go to church, then thou shalt go to Waffle House. It's not there. It's not there. As we continue here, and we may as well get into El Salvador. Here's your other big distraction. Here's your other big distraction coming up. But again, yeah, people have tried to challenge me on a few of those things. It's like, where does it say that in the Bible? It doesn't say it anywhere. That's the problem. I can't prove a negative. It's just not there. It's just not there, my friends. And that's why it's important to study it, not just read the Bible, but study it, and try to pick apart the correct languages and consider the time period, the history, and the thought process of people during that time. I've talked about this before, and a lot of people are like, that doesn't make any sense. Certain things, like, for example, heart, when it says heart in the Bible, in that time period, people thought that your heart was your center of thought and intelligence. So when it tells you in the Bible to keep something in your heart, what they mean is don't forget. It's not an emotional connotation. It's an expression from that time period that means don't forget this. But trying to explain that to people, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. Obviously, your brain, well, yeah, you explain that to people 5,000 years ago. You have the benefit of eons of medical study and other types of understanding that they did not have. They did not have. Flukeman says, which verse says Sabbath day is on Friday to Saturday, not the seventh day? Well, sundown is when the day is counted from, and Friday would be the seventh day. Friday would be the seventh day. Let me see. If I can remember. Hold on a second. Let me just open this for you here. Let me just open this for you here, because I don't remember the exact passage in Deuteronomy, but a simple search will show you. There's a basic Google search right here. Bible supports an understanding that the Sabbath begins at sunset. The days begin at sundown. Sabbath begins sundown Friday and ends at sundown on Saturday. But I don't remember the specific verse in Deuteronomy. But yeah, a simple search will find it for you. And I can look it up more in detail and bring it up tomorrow if you want. But yeah, it's right there. It's right there. Oh, is that it? Selma says Proverb 10. It's not in Deuteronomy? In the rules? Kimberly says, isn't it funny how preachers preach not to work on Sundays but have no problem patronizing establishments where people have to work on Sundays? Make it make sense. Okay, yeah, because one of the rules from Deuteronomy also is not to make someone else work. Don't force someone else to work on that day, which you're doing if you're going to Denny's afterwards. And Monkey says that's the part people don't think from that time's perspective, just like how Western people can't comprehend Eastern philosophy or Eastern way of life. Exactly. Exactly. They don't. You got to be able to put yourself in that mind frame and accept. That's why most people fail philosophy in college. I had 120%. I was so far ahead of the curve on the philosophy, and it wasn't because I'm so freaking smart. It's just because I was willing to accept that's how people thought. And I can't remember who it was. There was one philosopher who determined all things in the universe are made out of water, primarily because he could see water in three different forms: a solid, a liquid, and a gas. So he said everything must be made out of water, since everything can be seen in those three forms as a solid, a liquid, or a gas, or vapor. And I'm like, okay, 6,000 years ago, that's a pretty profound thought. But then you have everyone else in our philosophy class, that's pretty stupid. Obviously, everything. No, well, you know what? That was like 6,000 years ago. 6,000 years ago, when people are still rubbing stones together for fire, that's pretty smart. To even start to glue that together, you got the benefit of eons. But you want to talk about people from the past like they're all stupid, and you can't tie your shoes. Anyways, here we go with this. We're not done with Garcia yet. Politico. House Democrats travel to El Salvador to secure Maryland man's return. Maryland man's return. And then we got all these signs in the background talking about TikTok. TikTok changed my life for the better. TikTok helped me grow my business. What the hell does any of that have to do with Garcia? Anyways, 4 more Democratic lawmakers have landed in El Salvador as the party ramps up efforts to secure the release of Maryland man. The Trump administration now admits it erred in deporting. No, it did not. I don't recall the executive branch saying that was a mistake. Do you? Never mind the fact that he was obviously MS-13. It's printed across his hand. And El Salvador's not going to let him go because of that. And these people know this. He's not a Maryland man. He was an illegal immigrant who, when he did apply for citizenship, was denied. He has police reports for aggravated battery against his wife. She renounces it now, but at the time she talked about being beaten about the head with a work boot, blacking her eyes out, scratching her, tearing clothes off of her body, and beating her. Pretty violent stuff. So Democrat representatives Robert Garcia from California, Maxwell Frost from Florida, Yasmin Ansari from Arizona, and Maxine Dexter from Oregon are demanding that the White House abide by a court order to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States. What judge ordered that? Another federal court judge who has no authority in the matter? Again? They're planning to meet with officials at the U.S. Embassy in El Salvador to advocate for Abrego Garcia's release and to get information on other detainees transferred to El Salvador from the United States. Who's paying for those flights? Who's paying for those flights? Who? Anybody? Taxpayers? When are these people representing their own constituents? It's always my argument. John says, I think our history is older than the powers that be. Civilization is at least 450,000 years old. Yeah, her recorded history only goes back about 10,000 years, though, to ancient Mesopotamia. 10,000, 10,500 or so is the beginnings of what we have for recorded history. JJ wants to go back to watching South Park. There's a veritable supply of idiocy from which they can base scripts. But yeah, here we go again with this. Frost, in a statement, accused the Trump administration of running a government-funded kidnapping program illegally arresting, jailing, and deporting innocent people with zero due process. They're not citizens. They are not citizens, of which Abrego Garcia is their latest victim. They can find something more suitable than this to champion, to get people behind them if they want to get back in power. Quote, "What happened to Kilmar Abrego Garcia is not just one family's nightmare. It is a constitutional crisis that should outrage every single one of us." No, it doesn't. "We will not rest while due process is discarded and our constitutional rights are ignored." My constitutional rights have been ignored. My due process was discarded in family court. Where were you then? Where the hell were you when I was getting shit on in family court? Twice. Constitutional rights. Their trip follows the high-profile visit from Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, who traveled to El Salvador last week to meet with Abrego Garcia, and more Democratic lawmakers could follow. You know what? I hope they stay there. Democrats say the Trump administration is denying Abrego Garcia his right of due process and of plunging the country into a constitutional crisis by ignoring the Supreme Court order to bring him back. What Supreme Court? Did the actual Supreme Court say that? And even if they order him to come back, that doesn't mean that the president of El Salvador has to release him. Because in their country, MS-13, you're talking the level of being an enemy of the state. They're not going to let him go, or they shouldn't. They shouldn't. Nature Nerd says he's a violent criminal that should not be in the U.S. Tuck suggests taxpayers. Nash says taxpayers. Yes, taxpayers. Of course, we're paying for them to fly over there and waste time while they ignore their constituents and they ignore their duties. Puck says he had 14 years to get citizenship. I guess it wasn't that important. True. True. Kimberly said everyone who wants him back is screaming due process. He is illegal, no due process if you're already breaking the law. Where was my due process when the FBI grabbed me and told me I was being held under the Patriot Act? True story. Some of you know that story because I did a video on it a long time ago. So, oh, sorry, you can't make a phone call. You can't talk to anyone. You can't do this. You can't do that. You're not under arrest. You're being detained until we make confirmation. Where was my due process? Where were my rights? Where was my constitutional guarantees? Where the hell are they? And I'm not the only one. I'm just one example. How many American citizens who were born here that are generational even, that sort of thing happens to every day, and worse than what I went through. Again, I've said that before. I've been through a lot. There are people that have been through much worse. I'm just good at articulating it. I can tell the story. A lot of people are not good at that. While they want to run around and protect someone who's not even a citizen, who shouldn't have been here, who is dangerous, who is associated with MS-13, who has clout with them. He has rank in their membership. Rank within their membership. And this is what they want to champion. This is what they want to champion. This is what they want to get behind. And they wonder why they're getting the shit kicked out of them at the polls all over the place, up and down, all across the United States for the last several months, at least since the presidential election. And Habibi says, I feel for you when it comes to family court. No kidding. I guess you've had some similar experiences. But yeah, you got no rights. It's whatever the judge says, and suck it. Yeah, there you go. Nash says when dealing with the government, you don't have any rights. No. Caps, before I get into the article here, Caps says this will probably be forgotten in a few weeks, just like the El Salvador embarrassment situation that didn't matter anyway. I still don't understand what it's about and what the point is. JJ says, gotta love it when certain politicians care more about the rights of illegals than those of their own citizens. Indeed. While we're at it, though, you'll love this. Corruption time. You know, I got to find those corruption articles. I love them. I love showcasing the corruption articles. Axios article. Former Detroit nonprofit CFO is ashamed. He's ashamed of himself. He's being sentenced today, I believe. Days before his upcoming sentencing, or no, not today. Oh, Thursday. He's going to be sentenced Thursday. Excuse me. Days before his upcoming sentencing in federal court on Thursday, former Detroit Riverfront Conservatory CFO William Smith said he is ashamed and extremely remorseful for stealing more than $40 million from the nonprofit over the course of a decade. I'm real sorry about that. My bad. The Detroit Riverfront Conservatory, or Conservancy, excuse me, is among the city's most impactful nonprofits, I bet, having invested hundreds of millions of dollars since 2003 through public and private donations to do what? To transform the downtown riverfront from a neglected industrial land into an award-winning public space. How did they do that? Get artists to paint murals for free, get prisoners to plant trees, get prisoners to pick up trash on the side of the road. Where does that money go? Smith's apology was filed last week in hopes of receiving a lighter sentence than the 18 years in federal prison that the government is now seeking. The sentencing memorandum his lawyers filed asked for a sentence of roughly 12 and a half to 15 and a half years, noting Smith's cooperation with prosecutors and lack of criminal history. Yeah, I don't think he has much of a choice but to cooperate at this point. Smith, who's 52, pleaded guilty in November to wire fraud and money laundering, each carrying a maximum sentence of 20 years. He also agreed to a minimum of $44.3 million in restitution. Does he have that money? Because you know they come up with these agreements for these people that run these Ponzi schemes or that embezzle money, and they never pay it. The Conservancy began questioning Smith in 2024. He was suspended the following May and charged in June. While Smith and his attorney are seeking leniency, federal prosecutors say Smith's greed is hard to fathom. This was a crime, and this is the prosecutor. This is a crime born out of avarice so extreme that it remains difficult to fully grasp. Private jets, suites at the NFL games, floor seats at NBA games, over $3 million in cash transfers to his mistress. Luxury vehicles. Smith's appetites was simply insatiable. Oh, God. Oh, I love it. Private jets, suites at the NFL games. That means when you get the box at the NFL at the stadium, floor seats on NBA games, $3 million in cash transfers to a mistress. He had a side piece. He gave three. She must have been really good. Can you imagine giving a side piece over $3 million? Damn. Luxury vehicles. It says method for falsifying spending. For the 131 months that he was stealing for the Conservancy, Smith averaged 2 wire transfers per month. The smallest was 21,000. The largest was 496,000. On 211 separate occasions, Smith transferred Conservancy money to pay off his American Express bill, the average payment being around $70,852 for a total of more than $14 million. Oh, God. Oh, I love it. Oh, my goodness. Nature Nerd says, how much do companies in the U.S. use prison labor for cheap goods? I don't know about U.S. companies doing it, but if it's associated with the government, yes. Like they use them for volunteer fire department as smoke jumpers. We talked about that during the wildfires that were taking place in California, because 4/5 of their crew were prisoners that were volunteering as smoke jumpers. They use them, cleaning up trash on the side of the roads, digging ditches, whatever they can get them to do. But this is a nonprofit. It's not really a company. So if they can get prisoners, I was just suggesting, because I've seen prisoners, of course, cleaning up trash, planting bushes, stuff like that in Georgia. So I was like, yeah, I bet you that it makes sense to me that they could work something like that out. Sven says Detroit desires to be fleeced. They keep putting Democrats in, and this keeps happening. And Big Red said a church in Ireland burned down. Really? Puck says 40 million he made up for the absent criminal record in one fell swoop. But I just, man, the lifestyles, these people. And again, 3 million on his side piece. She must have been amazing. She must have been a freaking acrobat. $3 million to his side piece. Oh, and then you're going to get the boxes. You're going to get the boxes at the NFL game, and you're going to get the courtside seats at the NBA games, and no one's going to notice. Sooner or later, that lifestyle is going to catch up with you. And Kimberly said, how did he get away with it for 10 years? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Big Red says the Chinese use prison labor. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I'm not sure how that works. But I was just like, wow. And again, sentencing is Thursday. I thought it was today. I was mistaken. And what Rose here says, some U.S. jails use the prisoners for making U.S. Army uniforms and kit. Are they still doing that? Are they still doing that? I know that was a thing back in the day. I didn't know if they were still doing that, still working with uniforms and such. It's something to do. I mean, people frown on that kind of practice. You ask the prisoners how they feel about it. It beats sitting there all day. It beats sitting there all day. Most of them would rather be doing anything, especially if it means getting out, like the smoke jumpers, going out to the forest and digging ditches in a fire during a fire. I'd rather be doing that than sitting in the cell. Yeah, there you go. Puck quotes Seinfeld. He says, not an acrobat, a gymnast. Yeah, gymnast. She must have been incredible. I'll tell you what. While we're talking about corruption, we may as well jump to California and talk about Kamala Harris. You'll love this. New York Post article, Kamala Harris's tentative return to politics is a DNC fundraiser where tickets start at $25,000 apiece. Former Vice President Kamala Harris will dip her toe back into the political arena next month by headlining a fundraiser for the Democratic National Committee in New York. Harris, who is now 60, really? I thought she was older, has kept a low profile since her empathic emphatic 2024 election defeat by President Trump, but is widely assumed to be deciding between running for California governor in 26 and seeking the Democratic presidential nomination in 2028. Really? Is that what she's doing? She just can't choose. Should I be the governor of California or should I be the first female president? The May 6th event is being billed as a discussion between Harris and the DNC chairman Ken Martin, according to the New York Times, which also reported that tickets will be starting at $25,000 and will go as high as $44,300 a ticket. The former vice president has reportedly told allies she will make a decision about what she wants to do by the end of the summer, but has insisted as Politico quoted her saying last month, "I'm staying in the fight." She's going to stay in the fight. She wants to help you. She wants to save you. She wants to save you from the evil Donald Trump. That's what she's up to. In addition to a future run for office, Harris is considering launching an institute. Go to Zoolander with his school for kids who can't read good. Harris is currently the front runner, oh God, among potential California gubernatorial candidates, polling at 31%. We all know polls mean nothing. In a hypothetical jungle primary, but half of the likely Golden State voters don't want to see her in the election at all, according to an Emerson College polling Inside California Politics published Thursday. Incumbent Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom is due to leave office in January 2027, due to term limits, and has also been floated as a potential 2028 Democrat presidential candidate. So they just want to fail all the way around. Newsom, who's 57, has argued that the Democratic Party brand became toxic during Harris's time as former President Biden's second in command and needs to reach out to Republicans and Trump voters to build a winning coalition. My God. The Newsom is a failure. She's a failure. Incredible. 25,000 to 44,000. What did they say? 300? Yeah, 44,300. So ticket prices, depending upon how close you're sitting, I guess, will range from $25,000 to $44,300. That's like buying a car. For us, that's buying a car. 25,000, really good used car. 44,300, maybe even a new car. For some people, that's a year's pay before taxes. Before taxes. God, that's an incredible amount of money. Raccoon suggests Ham will be in the front row. Yeah, he'll buy 2 tickets. Puck says 25,000 because the feds are onto the Act Blue money laundering. There you go. Nature Nerd says a year's wages. There it is. I just, shoot, you got $44,300 you want to throw around? I'll take it. I will not squander a penny of it, I promise. I'll not squander a penny of that money. It's incredible to me that people have that to just throw around to try to prop these people up to do what? Do you really think you're helping humanity? And how much of it is laundering? How much of it is fake donations or fake purchases? elitists patting themselves on the back. It's really quite repulsive. There's better things you could do with your money. And I don't mean donate it to charity, because most of them will steal from you anyway. Most of them will rip that money off. We just read about a nonprofit where the guy stole $40 million. There's so much more you could do with your money if you wanted to help people, if you wanted to change things, if you wanted to make a difference. Even if you just went out there and individually did it. Seriously. It's repulsive. But we'll take a look at the debt clock really quick and see where we are at. Currently, the tariff projection is $660 billion. And Doge's savings projection is currently at $343 billion. It looks like it'll hit 344 by the end of the day. Good to know. Good to know. Keep on trucking, baby, as it were. So, hey, we are at the top of the hour. Come here, Granny Smith. Come here, darling. Come on. Come here. Hi. Oh, here we go. Granny Smith, everybody. But you uncomfortable? Did I pick you up wrong? Here we go. How's that? Is that better? So we are at the top of the hour. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. So I will say thank you to everybody who joined us here today, as always. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will catch you again tomorrow.